Thanks, man. Good evening. I just want to say, this is off topic. Tonight is my wedding anniversary. I chose it to spend with all of my closest friends. And if you want to give condolences to my wife, she's the one in the hot blonde in the 12th row back there. So on your way out, it would help me a lot. You know what sucks, other than going first? Having a birthday in December, close to Christmas. It's a total ripoff. Everybody wants to give you one of those combo presents, you know, combination birthday, Christmas presents. And you can always tell your laziest relatives because they always go, you know, they show up for cake and they go, oh yeah, Santa's bringing you your present. And you know, bullshit. We all know Santa is concerned with one birthday, and that's Jesus. And you know, if you don't believe me, ask Megyn Kelly if you can find her. My mom had it really bad. She was born January 4th, 1926. Which, now that I'm thinking about it, I probably gave you some password information in there. But forget what I said. She was born after New Year's, 1926. And that was really bad because everybody was broke after the holidays, and it wasn't the first pay period in January, so everybody was really broke. And she grew up in the Depression, so really broke meant nobody's eating unless daddy caught a fish. We didn't have a lot of money when I was growing up, and I'm not complaining. I mean, you know what they say, you know, I complained I had no shoes until I met a man that had no feet. I'm not complaining, but my parents just out-reproduced their ability to earn. And I'm grateful I'm fourth of five, so thank you very much. But I have to give them credit. I didn't know we were poor. I always had clothes on my back and, you know, food in my belly, so I had no idea we were poor. We didn't have a television until I was much older, so I had nothing to compare it to. But I remember nights where I had soup and mom and dad had toast and coffee, and I don't think that was by choice. And I remember nights where there were hushed discussions of you know, what are we going to do if dad loses his job? And as a kid, I thought, that's stupid. Parents worry about the dumbest things. My dad was the biggest, strongest, smartest, most talented man on the planet. Who wouldn't hire this guy? I mean, to be president of the United States if that son of a bitch Nixon wasn't in the White House, right? We lived, the house I grew up in was next to this florist and greenhouse. And I know that paints a pretty picture, but hold on. This was Satan's florist. This was where I would imagine the Addams family would go to get those bouquets of dead flowers that they had laying around. I always imagine the guy who ran it had a collection of about 10,000 balls, because balls would go over the hedge from our yard and never come back. And we wouldn't go get them because my parents had warned us about the rats. I remember watching you ever see that movie, The Sandlot, where the kids are playing ball and they hit the ball over the fence and it's protected by a big scary dog and they're afraid to go in? I always thought, what a bunch of pussies. Because I mean, it's a dog, give him some peanut butter or a bone. A dog will bite you, but he won't eat you like rats. The guy who ran the place was scary. The first time when I was young, I would see his legs under the hedge and I'd freeze and not breathe because I didn't want him to know I was there. The first time I ever saw him, I was 6 years old. I was playing in front of the house and I was building these little boats out of leaves and floating them down the gutter into the storm drain in front of the florist. And he saw me and he came out, and he was a short guy with a hunchback, and he growled when he talked, and he had one dead eye and one eye like an insect that kind of followed you around. And he came out and he saw me and he pointed at me, and I remember this clearly. He said, Grana Habenta! And I ran, and I was so glad that it was raining because nobody would know I wet myself. And all of that may or may not be true. It's how my 6-year-old brain remembers it, so it's as true as I remember, so you can't deduct points for that, all right? One year, we didn't get a Christmas tree. Beginning of December passed, no tree. My birthday week passed, no tree. We always had a tree for my birthday. An angel got its wings. The next week passed, no tree. Christmas week. It's like, we're not going to have a tree for Christmas. Somebody has to do something about this. And that someone was me. So I got all my birthday money. It was about $15. And I broke open my piggy bank. And I had like $24, mostly in change. And I was 8 years old, I think. And I wasn't allowed to cross a street. So I did the most courageous thing I have ever done in my life. I went to get a Christmas tree at Satan's florist. And I remember walking up to the place, and it was dark. It was always dark in this place. It was like walking up to Dracula's castle. And I knocked on the door, and he came to the door. And I didn't want to look him in the face because of the insect eye. And I went, I'd like to buy a Christmas tree. And he went, Grana Habenta. And I handed him my money, and I went over and I got the tree, and this thing was 6 feet tall, and I was 3 feet tall. And I pulled it over on top of me, and I dragged it home. I went inside. I said, Mom, I got us a Christmas tree. And she came out and looked at it, and the horror on her face was something I would never want to see again. We looked at it, and she said, well, it's got a bald spot. And I said, well, we'll turn that to the wall. And we turned it around, and there was no side of that tree that didn't have a bald spot. It had probably been cut in August. She said, well, let's wait until your father gets home. I thought I was doing something miraculous here. I thought I was saving Christmas, and I get, wait till your father gets home? That was never good. So we waited. And Dad came home, and he came out and he saw the tree. And the look on his face was the look I would imagine you would see on someone who was going insane. It was anger and fear and despair and pride and amusement all at the same time playing over his face. And I never understood that look until I had kids of my own. Thank you very much. Woo!